On June 25, 2013, in Washington, D.C., the Russian Emergency Situations Ministry, Russia's equivalent to FEMA, signed an agreement with FEMA to, quote, exchange experts during joint rescue operations and major disasters. This, according to the Russian Ministry for Civil Defense website. The Civil Defense website, however, goes on to discuss something that appears to be much more sinister. Russian so-called experts will be engaged in, quote, monitoring and forecasting emergency situations, training of rescuers, development of mine rescuing, and provision of security at mass events. This last line, that of providing security at mass events, has many people worried. We are talking about events like the Super Bowl, the Boston Marathon, and so on. Consider this. Russia, a country that is in effect our enemy, of which the NSA Edward Snowden controversy has exemplified, could next year be providing security at the Boston Marathon. We must remember that the Boston Marathon terrorists, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, were Chechens with close ties to the Russians. After the Boston Marathon bombing, having the Russians take part in security would be like the fox guarding the henhouse. This is, in effect, colluding with the enemy. Where will it end? If Russia will be providing security at so-called mass events, why not at smaller events? A high school prom, a local farmer's market, perhaps even a private party. Will there be any event safe from Russian security forces? And what about the so-called major disasters, the main function of these so-called experts? What will constitute a major disaster? We know during Hurricane Katrina, the local police were confiscating guns. New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin famously uttered these chilling words. No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons. Only law enforcement will be allowed to have guns. Guns were illegally confiscated, countermanding the Second Amendment. Here, New Orleans police confiscated weapons. We can easily see if Russian experts were brought in during a disaster, we would have Russian so-called security forces. Let's call them what they really are, Russian soldiers, on American soil confiscating guns from American citizens. Let us also remember that after the Boston Marathon terrorist attack, de facto martial law was declared in the Watertown and surrounding areas. Looking for the unarmed teenager Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, hundreds of militarized police conducted illegal house-to-house searches. Citizens were taken into custody without being charged with a crime. If a de facto or declared martial law took place, would these Russian soldiers be alongside their militarized police? Would there come a time when the Russian soldiers were actually the ones in charge during the martial law? What is our own government, the rogue administration of Barack Hussein Obama, doing? Most would call this colluding with the enemy. Most would call this treason. Obama has gone beyond trampling on the Constitution and has become an enemy of the state, a traitor.